For a movie buff like myself, the last year's Oscars were a pretty special night for me. Ambassadorian Documentary was nominated in 2 categories that night: Best Documentary Feature and Best Foreign Film. The movie didn't win any awards that night, but man, it was a good feeling when you hear a movie that was made in your country and is mentioned and praised in Hollywood, and it's getting worldwide recognition. The main star of Honeyland, the beekeeper named Hatice, who despite all her life struggles and unfortunate mishaps, she remained humble, positive and ever optimistic about the future. At 56 years old, she lived with her dying mother in an abandoned mountain village without any electricity. That woman was selling honey. Not any honey, but honey from wild bees from a very dangerous mountain terrains. The woman, ladies and gentlemen, was at the Oscars and she met Brad Pitt. She didn't know who he was, but Mr. Pitt knew her because he saw the movie. They took a picture on the red carpet and with smiles on their faces they parted ways. And I thought to myself, it's not too bad. They're both single, they're less than 1 year apart, with Brad Pitt being the older guy, I know. It will be a typical Hollywood romance in the heart of Hollywood. But this is not what I want to talk about, and this is not why the 20 Oscars were a special night for me. It was the Best Director category, where in a year where Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, Sam Mendes and Todd Phillips were among the nominees, the winner was the Korean director Bong Joon-ho for his movie Parasite. The Korean movie made Oscar history for being the first Korean movie to win Oscar for Best Picture, Best Writing and of course for Best Director for Bong Joon-ho. The awards were presented to him by Spike Lee, who is one of the best New York directors ever and a prominent figure in the representation of the black man in America since the 1980s. Bong Joon-ho on the stage was shy, nervous and humble. In his speech he thanked Quentin Tarantino, who praised and publicly was a fan of Bong Joon-ho's movies for the last 20 years and how without Quentin's recommending his movies, he will not be here on this stage that night. Then in his speech he said a quote that he learned when he was young and studying cinema: "The most personal is the most creative." That quote was from Martin Scorsese, who was a fellow nominee and who was sitting next to him in the audience. That brought a big round of applause and turned itself into a standing ovation for the 77-year-old Martin Scorsese. It was a very nice moment and everybody who loves cinema understands what Martin Scorsese means and what that moment meant for us all. And the nominated directors are Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Sam Mendes for 1917, Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, Todd Phillips for The Joker, and Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Bong Joon-ho's movie was really the best movie of the year, by far. The movie will be studied and rewatched in the years to come. It tackles the problems of today's society, the big disproportion between the classes, and the consequences of late capitalism. Sam Mendes' movie 1917 is a technical masterpiece, filmed like a one-take film and pictured by the great Roger Deakins. Joker was a pleasant but disturbing departure from Todd Phillips' comedic styles and movies. The guy who made the Hangover trilogy made an original, twisted but very realistic new version of the Joker. The inspiration for the movies were the 70s movies Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. Both of those movies are starring Robert De Niro and are directed by Martin Scorsese. The latest collaboration between Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro is up next, The Irishman. The Netflix-produced movie was a 3-hour-long epic movie starring the usual suspects, De Niro, Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, but this time more mature, more quieter, filled with regret, as the main character gets to the end of his life, which is actually the opening scene of the movie. Last but not least is the golden boy of the 90s, Mr. Quentin Tarantino. His 9th movie in his career was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, starring for the first time on the screen together Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. Probably 2 of the biggest Hollywood stars in the last 25 years. There is no bigger stars than them. They are great actors, they have great looks, they are sex symbols, they are a symbol of a generation, and they are full of class. The movie, it's about Hollywood in 1969, where a famous actor and his double realize that their time has come and a new generation is taking over. A new era is born, the 70s. The airport scene where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is coming back from Italy to US in a slow motion with his wife and all dressed up in 60s clothes with the Rolling Stone music in the background. That scene has nothing to do with the movie. You can cut the scene and the movie will still work. But for me, the whole movie was in that scene. The times are changing and you don't see them coming. You're enjoying the moment, thinking it would last forever. But actually, you're just out of time. While Martin Scorsese gets a standing ovation during Bong Joon-ho's acceptance speech, I was reminded of that scene and I had a thought. If this is the end of an era, it's the perfect farewell, where the old is leaving the floor for the young. Then, weeks later, COVID-19 hit global. The pandemic, for the first time in history of humanity, temporarily shut down the world for a few weeks. The cinemas got shut down too, for a very long time, and most of them are closed even now. And those who are open are working in a small capacity. 90% of the movies that's supposed to premiere in 2020 were postponed indefinitely and waited for things to get back to normal as soon as possible. The big blockbuster movies were pushed to 2021, while other movie releases were waiting for the things to get better and move on with their lives. Time went by, month after month, the pandemic situation was not getting better, and it was starting to get obvious that this COVID-19 virus is here to stay longer than we expected. The box office was empty, just a small percent of the movie theaters working in a small capacity, no big movie releases. The film companies had to react and to make a decision. Should we wait for the things to get back to normal and continue lose money? Or we should make deals with streaming services like Netflix, HBO Max, Disney+, Amazon Prime or Apple and release the movie digitally on their platform. The studio slowly but surely started to release the movies online. First Disney+, then Warner Brothers made a deal with HBO Max for releasing 18 major film releases, including Dune, Space Jam, Sopranos prequel and Matrix 4 between them. This made headlines and mixed to negative reaction from the film community, especially the people who worked on those movies. Dune is the most ambitious project of them. A childhood project of the director Denis Villeneuve, wrote an open letter speaking against the decision of Warner Brothers in an emotional but an optimistic manner. He begged the executives of the studio to think about the decision and to realize that they are making a big mistake. This will be the nail in the coffin of one of the oldest ways to enjoy movies, or some will say the only one, the cinema. Even before Corona, cinemas all around the world were struggling financially. The piracy of movies, which rages for 20 years now, they just didn't hurt the pockets of already rich studios, but exactly determined their future and the future of how movies will be watched in the future. Watching free pirate movies on the internet started to be a common practice and gave birth of a generation that watches movies in their homes and rarely goes to the cinema. This was evident through the years, and the first company that noticed that was Netflix, that they said, hey, the way of watching movies has changed. People now download and binge watch whole shows. They want to pause and watch movies whenever they like. So let's make a streaming service that can provide all those things they need. We can make original shows and release all episodes at once, not one per weekend how was custom before that. Netflix hit the jackpot, and they hit it big. Next it was Amazon with the live streaming service Amazon Prime, then it was HBO Plus, Disney Plus, then it was Apple, and so on. The number of streaming services is getting bigger as we speak. That's why in the last 10 years you feel that the only movies that they release in the cinemas are Marvel superhero movies, Batman, Star Wars, sequels, remakes, prequels. But the reality is that those type of movies, blockbuster movies, make their money back and actually make profit. The 70s were the independent era of movies, where a lot of creative and still to this day influential movies were made. The Godfather, Star Wars, Alien, Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, Apocalypse Now, Rocky, A Clockwork Orange, The Exorcist is just one of those movies that were made in the 70s. These movies were so influential that you can see their fingerprints in every movie today, or a TV show, or a reference in a rap song. Only they are enjoyed in a different medium. Going to the movies is not just a movie night, it's an event. You go to a dark room, big screen in front of you, and you disappear for a couple of hours. There is no distractions, only one purpose, the silver screen. The whole cinema breathes the same and shares the same energy. It's incredible. Just the experience of being there is enough. The movie can be good or bad. There are still people who are enjoying going to the cinema, and they are not just kids waiting for the newest sequel or a superhero movie. And I hope that the big movie studios will find a way how they can help the cinema owners to keep their cinema open, try to release something new, bold and exciting from here and there. It doesn't have to be always. I'm not asking for much. Somebody goes to church, somebody goes to the library, and for some people cinema is their temple. I hope you enjoy this. My name is Pande and you're listening to Yogurt Analogy. Vive le cinéma!